Good evening. I'd like to call this meeting of the Fairfield Community Schools Board of Directors to order. The time is 6:30 p.m. The regular monthly meeting of the Board of Directors of the Fairfield Community School District is to be held at 6:30 p.m. on the third Monday of each month. The meeting is open to the public and the public is encouraged to attend. Time is provided in the meeting for public input. The mission of the Fairfield Community School Board of Directors is: we empower all students to achieve their highest potential through strong relationships, collaboration, and accountability. The vision of the Fairfield Community School Board of Directors is a destination district where we all belong, learn, and grow. Will Secretary please call the roll?
Yep. Christy Kessel.
Here.
Dave Eastburn.
Here.
Mark Porter.
Here.
Mark Thornton.
Here.
Megadell Robbins.
Here.
Terry Wells.
Here.
Cody Freeman.
Here.
All present.
All right. Are there any changes to the agenda, perfections to the agenda?
I have none.
Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Christy, seconded by Mark Thornton. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Sorry. Okay, moving on. The next item, the board is being provided the superintendent's recommendation to terminate the contract of the identified employee. The board will not take any action at this time, and a hearing is in the process of being scheduled consistent with the employee's request and Iowa code. And now we'll move on to our focus on learning. We have a mid-academic year growth report connected to our district priority number 1, student success.
Yeah, I think the principals and curriculum director, special ed director, they're going to kind of tag team this from a K-8 level, so you guys can jump in whenever you're ready.
Okay.
It'll be up here as well. If anyone wants a hard copy, I've got those as well.
All right. I'll focus on the littles first for our preschool through first grade building at Washington. At the beginning of the year, we were at 47% proficient in the area of literacy. And when we just finished our benchmark screener for January, we're at 55%. So we were really happy to see that 7% increase in the area of literacy. Early reading at the elementary focuses on concepts of print, onset sound, letter sounds. We focus a lot on phonemic awareness. And then when we also wanted to see what are our strengths for each student and how much did they grow. So it was really exciting to see when you look at kindergarten, we had 100% of our students in kindergarten made gains. They may not have reached proficiency, but they made great growth. In first grade, even though we were at 52% proficient for winter, we had a 5% growth as a grade level, but 98% of our students did show some growth. And of those students who were proficient already, 99% of them grew, and we just had one student that did not. So we were really excited and pleased to see that progress. When you also look at our data, I also broke it down to see students that have IEPs. I was curious what their progress is. And for preschool, we had 25% of our students maintaining gains and growth. And typically when we have preschoolers that have IEPs, usually they don't have academic goals yet. Usually it's for adaptive behavior or behavior, and they're just learning about school. They're just learning about their letter sounds and their phonemic awareness. And so typically they don't have academic goals quite yet. 100% of our kindergartners that have IEPs made gains in growth according to FAST, and then 89% of our first graders had gains in literacy. So we're really excited to see that movement there and exciting to see what the spring holds. In math, just so you are aware, in January of 2026, the state did say that anybody that is not proficient in math also needs to have an intervention.
Next slide, John.
What's that?
Thanks.
Oh, yes, thanks. If your whole class is not 60% proficient in the area of math, the teacher does have to do a whole class intervention using research-based interventions. So all of our buildings have really been diving into math and having that be a focal area now. When you look at our scores for kindergarten, 61% are proficient in the fall, 51% in the winter. And so we did see a dip there. That could be because the I think the dip could be because the benchmark is rather rigorous from fall to winter, and we're also measuring a couple different things in that area for kindergarten. So that's an area that we're really focused on. When we drill down to that data and really look at it, our kindergartners really, the area of focus will be number sequencing, and so that's what we'll gear our interventions towards. And then in first grade, we stayed the same at 63% and 63%, and we'll be focusing on decomposing there. We don't do fast math for preschool. We're not required to do fast for preschool, but we feel like it's just a great thing to be able to get a baseline for them, and it gets them kindergarten ready since they're going to be taking that assessment. Some of our growth for IEP students, 94% of our IEP students in kindergarten showed growth, and 100% in first grade showed growth. So we're really excited to see that momentum. So even though we didn't maybe perform as well as we wanted in that winter time, we do think that majority of our students, when you look at 98% of our kindergartners showed growth and 77% of our first graders showed growth, that's an area that we're really proud of there. So we hope to get some momentum and push them forward for our spring testing. Do you guys have any questions about what our data is showing from fall to winter?
So if I'm looking at math specifically, in kindergarten in the fall, and then kindergarten in the winter, the only thing that was similar in regards to content was the number identification?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes.
And then similar in first grade, just different stuff.
Yes.
Yep.
In the area, when you look at our scores, number ID is definitely an area that we would focus in on, but majority of our kids that struggled, it was that sequencing. So they have that number sense, but yet they don't know how to put that in order quite yet. So that's the area that we'll focus on for whole class intervention there. The other thing that I'm really proud of the CLT work across the district that we're doing is every Friday we are really being intentional about looking at student data, looking at the standards, and really trying to make sure that what we're teaching aligns with what we're assessing. At my building, every week we focus 1 week on reading instruction and reading data, and we look at CKLA, that's our reading core 1 curriculum that we're using. The next week we look at a progress monitoring for FAST data and literacy, and then we also, the following week, we do math data. So we're on a rotation of constantly making sure that we evaluate where kids are and then adjust interventions as needed. Questions or anything? All right, thanks for letting me share.
Thanks, Elise.
Thank you.
Hello. So when the three of us got together to do this fun work together, we had 3 different ways that we were doing this. And then Zach had an idea, and you can kind of take data any way you want to. As I'm looking at this data right here, one of the pieces that I really kind of want to focus on is that column on the far right. That's part of those WIGs that we have for PENS. Looking at the percentage of students who were proficient and or showed growth. If there were another column to the right, it would state this. Our second graders started at 47%, showing the students that were proficient coming in, because we wouldn't have a baseline looking at that A rating for those kids coming in from first grade. So as a whole, the class grew from a 47% to an 86%. Looking down for the third graders, again, going back to our WIG of proficient and or showed growth, we started at 70% for third grade and grew to 89. And then for fourth grade, went from 70 to 72%. So then you're saying, what's happened here in fourth grade? Why do we go down 10%? I'm actually, and I don't really like to state this, we kind of did some testing a little bit differently. We kind of felt underneath the gun to get things done with having a limited amount of time before we had a PD day to get our groups set up for title and for MTSS. We did do this test on a Friday, not gonna lie on this, because it was just trying to work around everything. Not sure that was ideal. And I honestly, you think you live, you learn. I'm gonna make a prediction, we will not test on a Friday again. And I will make a prediction that score is gonna go up, because I know when those fourth graders tested. I don't really think that's an accurate portrayal of where the data is for fourth grade, just to be quite honest with you. So that's my biggest takeaway from this is probably Friday wasn't the best day to do this, but that's okay. You live and you learn. The other piece of this is each of our buildings, each of our grade levels have a PIG, which is a pretty important goal, which goes off that proficiency. So in each of the grade hallways, what you do see is the pretty important goals that are stated with what they're wanting to be at the middle of the year and at the end of the year. The other piece of that is where our WIGs are posted and where our PIGs are posted, there are stars. So as kids began to test, they're putting their stars around whether they made the growth or they were proficient. So kids are having their stars being put up, which is a huge piece for the kids to kind of see their name on the wall on a star. On the next piece of data, you'll see the CBMR. Again, that's looking at that fluency piece. And as you begin thinking about second and third and fourth grade, we're really talking about decoding. We're talking about phonics, phonemic awareness, and across the board how that looks. Second grade, obviously, if we look at that far right column, looking at those kids who are proficient and or show growth, second grade was at 100%. Coming into the school year, they were at 52% proficient. So from the beginning of the year, the second graders have grown from a 52% as proficient only, because again, we wouldn't really have that. Actually, this would be the one piece of data we did have, because they do the CBMR in first grade prior to coming to us. So we went from 52% to 100%. The third grade went from 67% to a 95%, showing that proficient and or showing growth. And the fourth grade went from 71 to 94%. The biggest celebration off of this screen is 100% of our students in title reading, second through fourth grade, had growth, averaging anywhere between 30 to 50 words. 100% of our students with IEPs had growth, ranging between 20 to 50 words. So, to me, that's like the biggest takeaway from this slide, whereas you still want to see that proficiency piece go up, looking down there on that middle column, to know that 100% of our kids made that growth that are in those specially designed small groups. That is a big piece for us right now. On to math. I guess, do you have any questions about reading before I go on to math?
Do you look at the number that are proficient and show growth, like already? Is that, I mean, it's not a column here, but I
Yes.
guess that's the one sort of question.
Yeah, and then there's some really good growth reports. Like you can really kind of start nerding out on FastBridge. I'm not gonna lie on this, because there is also that piece of like looking at those kids who, like, let's say are proficient, like what's that range of growth that they're making? And are they making that expectancy of what they should be making as well?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, this is the part that I really like. I wish I'd take a lot more time to, it's just like one of those pieces you get into all of this, but like there's a lot of digging you can do on this, yeah.
Is there like any sort of talk about how to prepare the students at kind of at the end of second grade for the transition into having those A tests that they don't have at the Washington building?
That's a really good question. So one of the pieces that it's a big change, and I know you don't do any of the other stuff on the computer, right?
No.
Just all the. Really, the biggest piece of it is really just talking about it, and it's really kind of hard. Here's your example. The first screen that comes up is like asking, what is this shape? And it might be like an apple or something like that. And then based on how the students respond, whether that question gets harder or it gets easier. So those are like the preparatory things that you're doing. It's different than what you see for like ISASS when a student gets into a third grade and fourth grade, where we have like the practice tests that we do for like weeks leading up to that. The teachers do an instruction leading up to that. This is, again, I always call this kind of like that dipstick check. It's just kind of like that's like that screener that we do. Not really truly the high stakes, but yet we put a lot of decision making on it as well. That's a big piece. Really the biggest piece is just kind of prepping them, making sure they take their time. And I think that's a piece that I could say that all second grade teachers, that we talk about is like, this is not a time test. And usually the biggest hurdle is technology, whereas I can remember back in the day when the fast testing started, we had binders. We would sit one-on-one with a student and we would go through all that. Truly, it took forever, but you probably got better results, whereas you have a kid with an iPad,
Right.
And there also is a case where you do have a kid who does finish early, or you think, oh, this doesn't look like what they're able to do. We do reset them. I mean, it's a very far and few, because that obviously testing ethics and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But there are cases where, we have reset it, where you see like a kid, you're like, this does not look like what they can do. We know they can do better than that. So we want to make sure that also goes into play too.
So they don't have any time limit when they're.
Usually the biggest hurdle is the iPad itself, the technology. A math, again, if I look at that far right column, that second grade group went from 53% to 90%. Again, that would have been a proficiency for them. The third grade last year, when they ended second grade, was at 73. They're at 74. And the fourth grade was at 64, going into 73. One of the pieces, as Heather alluded to earlier, is that at the middle of the year here, we've had to put math plans into play. We use a system called Panorama, where we enter any of the interventions that we're doing, whether that be Tier 1, Tier 2, Tier 3. So in the case if you had a student at Pence Elementary, if a teacher is doing an intervention within that classroom during that small group time, they'd be entering that intervention in. Each of our students are in an MTSS for reading. That's put in as a Tier 1 intervention. If a student is in title reading, that's put in as a Tier 2 intervention. And then if you're in special education, that's at Tier 3. So you see those layers. So as a kid goes from Heather's building to our building to the middle school, you're gonna be able to see all those plans through the years and be able to toggle through the years. So let's say, back in third grade, Johnny did a really good job and made a lot of growth. It's not like, hey, let's go try to find that file and dust it off. All that stuff is archived in there, and it is really great because you can archive what growth that they had, looking at the probes that you used. So that's a great piece. So now with having the A-Math, we have to document what those math interventions are doing. So that's a piece where I decided back at the start of the year, we were just going to just dive in. And dive in using more of that fact fluency, because really when you start looking at third and fourth grade, especially when we think about what did you guys learn in third grade? You're gonna say you learned your multiplication facts, right? Because I did. I mean, I couldn't wait to go up the times tables, get the extra sheet and get like a sucker off of it. That is the piece that really, when you start thinking about the fact fluency itself, that isn't a piece that is really integrated much. We teach them the different methods of how to add and subtract, the different methods of multiplying and dividing. So one of the pieces that we did is we began looking at the data, which is what we use for the math automaticity on the next page. Next screen, yep. Looking at where our kids are. Second grade, we'd be looking at addition and subtraction, and then for the kids who test out of that, we would start looking at the multiplication, giving them the direct instruction in that. Along with that, there's just some repetition. So what we've added into our day is an extra 20 minutes of looking at that math automaticity. And so that's been our biggest change. And so when I start looking at the A math, I'm not gonna lie, it's trying to fit everything into the day. You wanna fit the MTSS for reading, you wanna fit the MTSS for math, you wanna fit it into small groups. You could add another hour to the day and we'd be great. I mean, honestly, it's just, I don't wanna say there's not enough time, but there's a lot of time in there that we have to, really account for. And so that's our biggest piece this year, is just trying to respond to that. And really, as you start looking through this piece, hopefully over time you start seeing that growth with having to have these math plans in place, and just really, focusing in on that. One of the other pieces of this is we do have a consultant through the AEA, Amber Ernest, who's been working with us. And she's been really a good wealth of information coming in and working with our general education teachers. One of the pieces that is kind of the key thing to take away right now is within the classrooms right now, you can have the students who struggle with basic math facts all the way up to kids who can probably understand, middle school concepts all in one classroom. With our IM Math, there are a lot of features online right now with AI where you can kind of help scaffold and differentiate your lessons to kind of help meet those students. And that, to us, has been our biggest takeaway this year, is taking the curriculum that we've been in now for 6 years, but really adapting with the classes that we do have, because there are varying needs in each room right now. So, it's a lot. Sorry, I could ramble for a long time.
No, it's super helpful info. Last year, I think you said that with some of the math classes, you separated them kind of based on certain mastery base.
So that's happening now during the small group time. You see a lot of the switching happening, to really kind of meet those needs with the extra instruction that's needed or enrichment that's needed with those groups. again, give us another hour. We can make more time happen.
Do you analyze like year over year, whether it be 1 year of classes they go through or that same grade of like, do you see a dip or consistency or always up, or is it everybody's different, so it's always Does that make sense?
Which area are you talking about, reading or math?
on any of it?
When
Just for the year over year to be like fourth grade, they're always failing in the winter, not failing, decreasing in the winter versus the fall or something.
Usually I see third grade. That's usually the time where I see like things are starting to click, where you might see like there's this big gap between students who are not proficient and kids who are proficient. Let's say, for instance, like with CBMR, okay? We're still making growth, but we're not proficient. And so you kind of see that number become stagnant in third grade as far as like proficiency. But by the time they leave us in fourth grade, I mean, I can sit in an IEP meeting, and obviously that's for our students who are tier 3, and I can name dozens of names in the last, obviously as being a coach prior to this, in the last 10 years, kids that came in on a single hand, like being able to read, in second grade. And then we're talking like as they go into like fifth grade, and Carly's like, so-and-so, they exited off their IEP, and that means they're reading at grade level. Like I usually see like things start really clicking about third grade, and you kind of see the numbers kind of stay stagnant, and by the time they leave in fourth grade, you're like, they got it. So that's truly what we typically see. Yeah. Lots of foundational things, and I think the big piece to always take away from that is thinking, okay, we have these kids who aren't proficient. I mean, you think about like a skill that you teach, like where some kids can, hear it like once, twice, 3 times. Some kids have to hear that same instruction. You think to yourself, a short vowel, like seriously, how many times do I have to say this to this kid? I don't know. Are they dyslexic? And they're fourth grade and they're finally understanding short vowels? I mean, talk to that mom at an IEP meeting. She's gonna be really happy that it finally it clicked. So, it really depends.
Thanks.
And another piece with all of that, and you saw my kind of like word vomit there in that third column from the right, the percent proficiency growth for grade as a whole group. The piece that has been ongoing this year, the amount of move-ins and move-outs, really affect this number. I don't really feel like we're comparing apples and oranges constantly, if that makes sense. The other piece that doesn't change is, let's say this kid's proficient and they keep the same score, let's say like especially on the A reading or the A math, it counts as a negative towards us, if that makes sense, because it wasn't a growth. And so that's another piece to kind of take into account with that as well. So again, data can kind of be kind of skewed. So that's kind of why I put all that information in there, because it's not, counting in other factors that happen. Not as an excuse, but those are factors. So.
It sounds like the IM math curriculum though is helping, like you said, the tools that it's,
The
do
tools.
you feel
I'm
like you're
telling you,
missing
we
something
all
in
could have
terms of math?
retired after COVID because we made that platform and put it online, and then they made their own platform. So we could have been millionaires by now with IM Math. That is our biggest takeaway from all of this, is that we had already built it, and then they rebuilt it for us. But yeah, some of the features that they're really adding on, game changer. I mean, it's kind of one of those pieces you can go down a big rabbit hole pretty quick, but then it just clicks. I mean, so when you start thinking about like, how do I meet this student? I'm in a third grade classroom. This kid really kind of has more of like a first grade skills. They can really scaffold it down. Or I have this kid, I don't want to give them busy work, but like how can I challenge them? And I think that's the biggest piece right now. I mean, like Tina Edlin and I would get into these banters back in the day when we were across the hallway, because she's fighting for tag, I'm fighting for sped. I'm like, we have the same fight, we're just on the opposite ends. So, okay. Thank you guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, hello everybody. So similar to Washington and to Pence, we of course have our winter testing as well. At the middle school, we get the joy of testing for literacy, both fluency and comprehension, because ultimately we want our students to be moving away from just decoding and reading fluently to being able to really comprehend and understand what they're reading. So 5th and 6th grade, we test fluency. Really proud of that 6% proficiency growth in 5th grade for fluency this year. And then we did have a little dip there for 6th grade, even though it was the same number of students proficient, we had some kiddos move in. And so our proficiency was around the same, but with student move-ins, that kind of played with our proficiency percentage there. But we still had 96% of our sixth graders who were either proficient or grew in fluency, and 95% in fifth grade, which is really awesome. And Mark, you were asking about looking at those like groups of kids from year to year, and I looked at our growth compared to last year for fluency. You can see at the bottom, our fifth grade fluency this year, average from fall to winter should be 17 words correct per minute increase. Our average was 19, which is more than what our fifth graders grew on average last year at this time. In sixth grade average, we expect 15 words correct per minute increase from fall to winter, and our average was 18, which for that cohort is more than what they grew last year fall to winter. So we're seeing those increases continue to grow and move, which is what we of course want. Comprehension, we had some really, really great increases. Fifth grade, 5%, sixth grade, 4%, seventh grade, huge growth with 12% increase, and then eighth grade with a 4% increase. And those are measured on our MAP assessment, which is through the NWEA platform. It's adaptive, so it starts kiddos in the fall all at the same level, and then it gets harder as they get questions correct, easier as they get questions incorrect. And then it gives us information about where they are as far as informational text, literary text, and vocabulary acquisition and use. And so then from there, we're able to kind of sort and look at where students are struggling across the board and also individually. And for our 6th through 8th graders, that's where we create our lift groups, which is our MTSS time at the end of the day. And then our 5th graders also have their MTSS or reading groups where they're getting what they need based on either fluency or comprehension in 5th grade. And then 6th through 8th grade, we really, again, hit that comprehension hard. And so we're able to make our intervention groups cross-grade, mixed grades, just depending on what students need, where they're at similar levels based on their scores, which that was a change that we made last year and I think has been really, really successful because we've seen huge increases in that growth for our students and being able to truly understand what they're reading and vocabulary. And that's been a big change this year as well. We added in a vocabulary lift group and we saw a lot of growth for those kids as well. Lots of kids moved out of reading groups post winter testing, which was awesome for them. They worked their way out of those groups and are able to maybe choose something that's a little bit more enriching or fun for them as well. So it was great. Looking at math. This one was really exciting for me because as a whole, it might be the highest math growth that we've had since I have been at the middle school. 5th grade, we've still got some work to do there. As we see, we did have that dip in proficiency. But when we look at those students who grew, we had 71% of our students who grew and 75% were either proficient or showed growth. This is the first year we're using MAP for 5th grade math. Historically, we've used AMath, which is the same assessment used at Pence. But I really wanted to compare apples to apples. I wanted to see what are our 5th graders scoring so that we can continue to move those students forward. And when they come into 6th grade, we have that data in front of us to say, we already know, we can pull that report, maybe they're struggling with this, and we can just continue with that instead of comparing AMath, which just doesn't assess quite the same things in the same ways. So that is a dip, but again, this is the first time that we've used that assessment in 5th grade, and so that's something that we're absolutely responding to. Similar to at Pence, we are using that IM platform with AI to build some intervention lessons. Work smarter, not harder. It's tied directly into that curriculum that we already have. And so we're building that into math group time in the 5th grade. That way all kids are getting similar things as well within a kind of a rotation of spiraling, are reviewing what they're learning currently, as well as going back to those things that they learned and reviewed earlier in the year. That way those skills are staying fresh and we're building on that and not learning a skill, moving on and forgetting it, because we all know, if you don't use your math, you kind of forget it. That's like me trying to help 8th graders with their math homework. Sometimes I don't always know what to do. So we want to make sure that those skills are just staying fresh for them as they go throughout the year. And we just started that recently. So we're excited and hopeful that we'll see those big gains in 5th grade math as we get toward the end of the year. 6th grade math is always a highlight for us, so we know 23% increase there for proficiency, and 91% of our students were either proficient or showed growth, which was amazing. Our 7th graders had a really nice jump at 7% proficiency increase here from fall to winter as well, with 90% of them showing proficiency and or growth here at this testing window. And our 6th and 7th grade math teachers also have a math intervention class period. It fits in their schedule where they're able to offer that period this year as just a bonus support for some students who maybe just need to see their math teacher and review those skills every other day and keep those fresh. And all of those students showed growth on these tests, which was amazing. So seeing that extra contact time really just pay off in the assessments. Again, those dipsticks as we hit through the middle of the year was awesome. So really, really proud of those math teachers for showing that huge growth. 8th grade had an amazing jump as well at 6%. With that 8% average overall growth in proficiency for the building, which was awesome. So that test again is on MAP, where it measures those different areas in math skills like number systems, expressions, equations, functions, geometry, and statistics and probability. And again, I wanted to look at what our average growth was by grade level compared to what was expected. So MAP gives you your expected benchmark fall, winter, and spring. That expected benchmark in 5th grade, you should grow about 6 points. Our average score increase there was 3. So again, we can see that in the proficiency as well. That's an area that we really need to focus on. As we look at 6th grade, 6 points is expected. Our average was 11 points, so totally blowing that out of the water. 7th grade expected was 4 points, and so our average score increased by 7 points. And then 8th grade again was 4 points expected, and our average score increased by 6 points. So lots of above expected growth there for a lot of our kids. And one other thing that we are doing to respond to our math data is, again, like Angela talked about, Amber Ernest through the AEA has been a wealth of knowledge. She can talk circles around me in math, which is wonderful because I was an ELA teacher, so I love the reading piece, but she just knows so much about math. And she trained a couple of our staff members in a new math intervention that we are piloting right now with some of our 6th and 7th grade students in our lift time. And so don't know yet exactly how much they're growing with that because we just started, but that allows us to provide more interventions in math for our students because we have more staff trained, which has been awesome. So that's been great. We'll talk
One
about
more. Science.
Yep, science. This one was another really big celebration point for me. This is, I know for a fact, the best science growth I've seen in my 3 years here mid-year. So 5th grade had a wonderful increase of 9% in proficiency, and 87% of our students were either proficient or showed growth. In 6th grade, we did have a dip in proficiency there. We went down by 2 students being proficient. So just a small decrease there, but 89% were either proficient or showed growth. And then 7th grade, we had 72% of our students in the fall, 72.4 to 67. So that's where we did see a dip as far as proficiency, but we had 90% of those students were either already proficient or showed growth. And so we had a lot of 7th grade students show a lot of growth in science. And then 8th grade science, 16.9% increase in proficiency. They worked their tails off there. So 93% proficient or showed growth. And as you can see at the bottom again, that comparison of what was expected in growth to what we showed in our average growth increases. 3 points in 5th grade is expected, 6 points is what we averaged, 2 points in 6th grade expected, 3 points average increase, and then 7th grade 2 points expected, 4 points was our average, and 1 point expected in 8th grade, and we averaged 4 points. So one thing that we did that I think made a huge difference with this winter testing system testing session is, you know, a lot of times we do see a dip in the winter. Kids kind of just hit their lull and they don't necessarily care. So we did a couple of challenges. We did a grade level challenge of the grade level with the highest overall average growth. So I took all of their growth percentages and averaged them. And that grade level earned a little reward of some free time during their MTSS period and some snacks. I looked like a lunatic going to Walmart buying a bunch of zebra cakes and snacks. But 8th grade won that, so they were very excited because I think 8th graders often get the kind of the gig of being 8th grade-itis and they're a little bit checked out, but they worked really hard and showed a lot of growth. So they got to enjoy that last week with lots of snacks. And then we also did an individual challenge. So any student who met the half-year expected growth in 2 out of 3 areas. So it wasn't just any growth, they had to meet the half-year expected growth. We did a little candy nacho bar last week, so they got to do, they had animal crackers and graham crackers and toppings and all sorts of fun. So they really enjoyed that. I think it gave them something to look forward to and to work for. I know a lot of kids just enjoyed it, just being rewarded for their hard work. As they said thank you, I was like, well, thank you, because this is for you and for the hard work that you showed. And so they just seemed really aware of it. I had a lot of kids stop me in the hall during testing and say, Mrs. Martin, guess how much I grew? So they were owning that and aware of it. And all of our teachers had kids set goals before their tests as well. So just that awareness, I think, made a huge difference for us this time. And we saw a lot of great gains. So, any questions?
I guess I'm just curious about science because there's, you're moving along through a grade curriculum. There's no intervention really for science, right? So if they miss something, are they tested on that again, kind of those building blocks the next year? And are we like?
So
Is
that's
there
what I
really
like
interest?
about MAP is it picks up where the kids are.
Uh-huh.
So it continuously tests and assesses on those same skills. And so that is something, again, going back to like that work that we're doing on Fridays of really breaking down what those standards are, what's taught where, how do we know, what are we spiraling and how to keep those things fresh and then filling those gaps for those students. This allows us to break that down a little bit to say, all of our kids or a majority of our kids are really struggling in this area. We need to make that a focus as they move from grade level to grade level.
Okay, makes sense. Can you just repeat for me, when do they get the intervention in 6th and 7th grade math? Like what part of the day? Is it during math or is it the extra MTSS?
So it's during our lift or MTSS at the end of the day. But some kids, if they are just needing maybe a little bit more than that, there's a class period built in, kind of like our title reading,
Right.
where they would go in and have that. We have math support with those math teachers as well.
And then if kids are in both, what if they just have to assign them one or the other for reading and math?
And that's where, we would, for part of the year, put them in a reading intervention if they needed it, or a math intervention. And that's where having those extra periods during the day allows us to also serve more of those kids who need
And those
that
would be
intervention.
students that don't have an IEP or a goal
Yeah.
connected to literacy or math. They're getting that intervention in a tier 3 format with their STI.
Okay.
We did shift some things too for this lift session where students with IEPs, even if they are getting that SDI during the day, during MTSS, if they maybe were really, really close but didn't show enough growth in reading or math, they're receiving one of those interventions in MTSS as well, as long as they're not receiving SDI during that time. So some kids are getting a double dip as well to ensure that they're getting as much contact time in that content that they need.
Yeah, it's a rabbit hole.
It is, yeah.
More and more questions, but I won't.
Anyone else? All right, off to a band concert. Thank you.
Thanks, Carly.
All right, let's move along to our committee reports. Each committee chair will share a 2 to 3 minute update connected to their work. We'll start with policy. Mark.
Yeah, so we met Friday, February 6th at 8 a.m. We reviewed 3 of the 400 policies, which you'll see on there with no changes. So they'll just be going through as they are. And then we kind of talked through, Evan and I were trying to revamp how we review all of our policies and get a plan in place for that. So starting in March, we're actually going to attack one whole series and go through all of them and just knock it out. And so we're gonna try that for March. So we may have a huge reading out either in the March board meeting or April, depending on how that meeting goes, just to get a lot of them up to date and as close to IASB as we can. And so we're gonna try that with the 400 series first coming up. And then if it works, we'll continue to work our way through so we can get through all of our policies and get them up to speed and reviewed in a timely fashion. And we'll see how that goes. I think that's it.
Thanks. Strategic planning did not meet, so it's nothing to share, right? Nothing, okay. Finance, Dave.
Yes, so Finance Committee met on February 4th. And we reviewed the proposed property tax levy public notification that we'll have later in the meeting. And the committee agreed with the publication language and the need to stabilize the levy rate for our taxpayers. Additionally, the committee reviewed the current medical health benefit and budget and the budget impact of utilization rate.
Sounds good. Thanks.
Short meeting.
It was. Operations, Mark.
Yep, we met on February 6th, and it was another pretty short meeting. Primarily, we just got together to discuss kind of the topics that we want to generally discuss in all of our operations meetings. Historically, or in the past, operations was basically just facilities, and usually what we normally discuss in those meetings, we just talk about any upcoming projects that would be potentially coming up. But now that operations is much larger than that, it's much more larger encompassing of the whole district. So we discussed the four main areas that we wanted to be a part of operations. It was facilities, technology, transportation, and food service. So pretty much anything facilities wise, it's supposed to be coming to our attention as we're going to discuss any upcoming projects that we're going to be doing in the district, and then also look at the cost of those projects and also the need of those projects. Anything technology wise, transportation wise, and food service. And then we also just kind of talked about how the structure of operations is now set up within the district. So basically, the operations director, who's Matt Tyler, actually reports to Evan, and then talked about how also Stephanie Hawkins and reports to him as well. So basically just talked about those simple things and talked about the things that's going to drive that committee going forward. We also spent a little bit of time talking about the 5-year capital improvement plan. We discussed the upcoming softball fence that's going to get renewed there at the softball fields, and then just a handful of other projects. There's also going to be a new sign going at the Washington School, but I don't believe any of that's coming to a vote tonight. It'll be coming down the road, correct? So, yep. That was it.
Great. HR negotiations, Cody.
All right, our HR committee met on Thursday, February 5th. We discussed non-certified vacancies for the 2026-27 school year, seeing if there are any additional vacancies that might have been unknown since our last meeting. The current certified openings are posted on our district website. I think Zach's going to go into more detail on that on his update on individual openings. We also discussed the admin and director's professional service contracts, which are included in tonight's agenda for a vote, and also the contracts for a 3% increase across the board for secretary staff contracts, which is also in the agenda. We also spent a brief amount of time on the Schedule B tentative agreement, which is an updated contract compensation schedule for extracurricular activities, which is your coaches and leaders and things like that at all the different buildings. And that too is on the agenda for tonight. So the HR committee put a lot of work in for tonight's meeting.
Great. Thank you. All right, we'll move along. Do I hear a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So, second.
Is that Mark Porter and Dave
Yep.
Eastburn? All right. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. No public participation this evening?
Receive none.
Okay. We'll move along to new business. Do I hear a motion to approve the administrators, directors, and professional services contracts as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cody, seconded by Terry. Any discussion here? I know you're just talking about it. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 8.2, do I hear a motion to move the regularly scheduled March board meeting to Monday, March 23rd at 6:30 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Christie. Any discussion? This is just to move it past spring break. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to set a public hearing for the proposed property tax levy on March 23rd, 2026 at 6:30 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Cody. Any discussion? That's what Dave was referring to. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the amendment to Schedule B of the Master Teaching Contract as presented, including the elimination of the existing Schedule B and Schedule C and the replacement with the revised document?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Cody, seconded by Mark Porter. Any discussion?
Yeah, just a quick note, our FCEA group, or the union, ratified this on Sunday, so they did notify Zach and I via email that their membership did approve this agreement, so I just wanted to put that on the record.
Yeah, and I would just add the percent, increase over the next 3 years from a base standpoint, like what it's calculated off of, is just under $10,000. And so what that equates to actually for somebody who does hold a contract in one of these areas is just about 10% over the next 3 years each year. So almost 30% total when it's all said and done. And with that, we're gonna be the highest in our region other than, a 5A school in Ottumwa. So it'll be good. Thankful for the hard work of the different people that have been a part of that planning and
Yeah.
yeah.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to set a public hearing on March 23rd, 2026 for the proposed fiscal year 27-28 school calendar at 6:30 p.m.?
So moved.
Second.
I think it's 27, 28 calendar, right? Should
Did
be.
I say 26, 27? I'm sorry, 27, 28. It's 1 year though?
But it's 2 years away.
2 years away.
Next year's was already approved last year,
Right.
so this one is 2 years out, correct?
Right,
Yep.
okay. Fiscal year 27, it says fiscal year 27, it's fiscal year 28. So,
It should be calendar year.
calendar
Yeah.
year, okay.
27, 28.
Okay, so not the calendar next year, but the following year.
Yeah.
Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Mark Porter, seconded by Terry Wells. I think we've had some discussion on it already. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve a 3% increase for all secretarial staff as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Christie, seconded by Dave Eastburn. Any discussion here? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve the at-risk dropout plan for the 2026-2027 school year?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Christie, seconded by Terry. Any discussion?
Is this any different than what it was previously?
Yeah, a little bit, and historically, this wasn't something that was approved at the same time as when we requested funding for it, or we didn't know that. So this should have been on the board meeting in December when we approved the finance component connected to it. So now it's just, yeah, we had to make sure we got that right.
Anything else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 8.8, do I hear a motion to approve board policies at the second reading as presented?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Terry. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion to approve board policies with no change and waive the second reading as presented?
So moved.
Moved by Terry,
Second.
seconded by Dave. Any discussion here?
Are these changes or non-changes just direction from the state, just like previous policy?
Yeah, these we just, there were no changes from my ISB, it's what we had, so we reviewed them, so we thought we might as well update the review date,
Okay,
so,
so it's just a date, yeah.
yep. Pushes out the review another 3 years.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, 8.9. I'm calling up for consideration the resolution fixing the date for a public hearing on the proposed issuance of approximately 23,500,000 school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, which requires that a public hearing be held on this, proposed on March 23rd, 2026 at 6:30 p.m.
So moved.
Moved by Cody, seconded by Mark. Any discussion?
Yeah, I would just say again, I thank you for all your hard work and energy the last couple weeks. The work session last week, getting us to a spot where I think we're able to move forward with a legitimate plan that's going to come to fruition, and I'm thankful for that.
Yeah. Anything else, anyone? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. 8.10, do I hear a resolution authorizing the redemption of outstanding school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue bonds, Series 2017? Do I do these separate?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Terry, seconded by Dave. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Do I hear a motion for a resolution authorizing the redemption of outstanding school infrastructure sales, services, and use tax revenue refunding bonds, Series 2020?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Cody. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right. Superintendent updates.
Yeah, we're excited. We just got our final draft of the second edition of the Trojan Times, so that'll go out sometime within the next month. We sent it to the AEA today to get printed and folded and all the stuff, so it's ready to go out to all of our district-wide residents. One of the things that we had shared with our staff connected to True North and our health plan, as we move forward, we're actually adding some support from one of their employees who's got 35 plus years in the healthcare industry in a lot of different roles. But she's currently acting as a support for our staff as they navigate different decisions and where they need to go or what should happen as part of their healthcare plan. And it's us and then another entity, which is a private company, about 200-ish employees. They're not charging us an additional fee for this, and it's already been useful for multiple people. We'll continue to try to educate more on how this is a preventative step as opposed to a reactive step when we get a bill or we get something that doesn't make sense on a statement standpoint. So that's exciting. Obviously, winter activities are wrapping up. We've got, I think, bowling was today, wrestling at the end of the week, basketball through next week too, most likely for the boys. Girls ended their season this past weekend. We have 25 teachers, instructional coaches, administrators that are attending PLC conference in June. Again, this directly aligns with our student success priority and acting as a high-functioning professional learning community as interdependent team members. So this will be a good learning experience. It's 3 days down there. It's pretty intense. Usually you come away just overwhelmed and excited, wanting to do all these things, and you got to kind of rein it in to make sure that we're focused on what we can do and what's going to have the biggest impact. I think you guys, I shared this with you, but just wanted to make sure publicly our middle school instructional coach is coming back. Sarah Polk, who is currently a title teacher, she's going to be moving into that instructional coaching role starting next year. We backfilled that title as well, which was all in the consent agenda. One of our third grade teachers is going to be moving over to the middle school to teach a title, so that's exciting. I know it's going to be good for our instructional leadership team as a whole as well. And again, that's at zero cost to us. If you saw the consent agenda, the amount of money we're going to be spending on contracted services with the AEA went down roughly $100,000 from the year prior. So we're going to just bring more of that in-house supports for our teachers and our kids. I hit on staffing a little bit. We do have some science apps that are in, and intriguing, so that's exciting. We still have the high school special ed opening is still there. We're actually interviewing for art. I know we've got one interview maybe tomorrow for that. We have a few applications for that. And then we interviewed last week for some of our elementary jobs, kindergarten, 3rd grade, 5th grade. We don't have any formal offers out yet as we're still working through the referencing and making sure it's the right fit for the right building, because we've done those collectively with our elementary, middle school principals, not just one or the other, so which is a really good way to do it. It can be a little bit challenging at times, but it's a positive step for us. Just want to give a shout out to our tech team. Over the last six weeks, we've gotten all these new cases that have had to come, to the iPads to get fixed. Again, these were free because the ones we had, there was a nuance that made it really hard for them to charge, and so they got us all new cases, and we've seen a big increase there in the increase in not having issues. So we haven't had nearly as many issues, but it's been a lot for them. Also, they had some professional learning with Apple that came in for our special education teachers, usually utilizing those devices and some of the extensions and things that they could use for accommodations for students with IEPs, and that was really positive. Yeah, finally, it's President's Day, so happy President's Day. We didn't get you any present, but yeah, that's all I got.
All right, thanks. All right, well, we'll move into highlights. Let's see, who would like to start? Christy?
Sure. It's always great having our principals here giving us updates on what's going on in the buildings and hearing about the positive progress that they're making. So that was great. I've heard a lot of positive feedback from people in the community about our work session and our decision to move forward with the new phase of the middle school. So I really feel good that we're headed in the right direction. I've had a lot of people, comment and, say that they're glad that that's the direction that we're moving. So I think that's a huge win for us.
Great, thanks. Terry?
Yeah, I'll just reiterate, it was good to hear the news of all the good work all the teachers are doing underneath the principals at the buildings, and hearing that the new Trojan Times is going out. I heard a lot of good feedback on that first one that went out. I think that's a good thing that we're keeping that up.
I have to agree with Christy on the direction of the middle school and just having a plan to move forward with, and
Yeah.
it's very positive.
Great, thanks. Mark?
I think my highlight was I was not at the work session. I'm still pleased with where you guys ended up with it. So, no, I'm kidding. So, but anyways, no, I woke up Tuesday and called Meg, and I was like, that's exactly where I think I would have probably pushed for us to go, so I'm glad that that's where you guys ended up. And thank you for doing that without me. I apologize I was not able to be here, but I think you guys did a great job with that. So.
Did all of the stuff that's already been said. I guess I'll call out all of the changes from the HR committee that came out. I know that's been a work over the past year, if not longer. So I was on the committee before, so thanks to everybody on that committee that's also pushing and getting all that actually finalized and in order. So hopefully that will push our teachers to want to stay and grow for themselves.
Yeah, Mark, we did it in your name, so.
I just knew
Your name's on it.
I just knew Tuesday was gonna be a long day if I disagreed.
So yes, I think that, I think everybody knew where I stand on the middle school, but I think that this is the most feasible path. And so I appreciate everybody's hard work, and I think we have a consensus and we can fund it, and I think it'll be good for our community. I really appreciate always seeing the leadership team here. Sometimes what they're talking about is, I feel like they're speaking Russian, but I think that there's been some wins and some disappointments, but it's really good to see the coordination between the buildings and now being able to take a student from kindergarten all the way through 5th grade in a coordinated manner, and watching their growth and investing in them. And the last thing is I appreciate investing in the Schedule B our extracurricular activities and the coaches and teachers that we have in that, I think that will go a long ways to meeting some of our goals and our visions. So, and happy President's Day.
Thanks. I have the new highlight because you guys said them all. No, I mean, we kind of flew through all that new business, but there was a lot of good work in there, and you know, the development with the middle school. So it's taken a while to get to some of these places, even though we flew through it in, I don't know, 20 minutes. So thank you guys all for all that hard work. And yeah, having the principals and having that consistent framework that we can kind of check in on, you know, 3 times a year is great. And having an instructional coach and having those funds from funds that we already were, you know, that have been flowing through the AEA is really great. So it's, yeah, it looks like good things ahead. Thank you guys. I think that's it. Am I forgetting anything here before I ask for a motion to adjourn? Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Dave, seconded by Christy. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned at 7:30 p.m.